Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my pitch today. I'm going to base the structure of this presentation on the structure of the application form for the AHRC Catalyst Award. So, to begin with the summary. My name is Dr. Azalina Flint, and I will be bidding for an AHRC Catalyst grant to scale up my impact acceleration project, Women's Iconography in the 21st Century, which ran from March 2023 to March 2025 and was administrated by Lancaster University, where I previously worked as a lecturer in English. Women's Iconography in the 21st Century documents the hitherto overlooked sacred art movement of women's iconography through symposia and exhibitions that promote the work of female iconographers who face discrimination and barriers to success in their faith communities. Women's iconography as a movement has burst out in the 21st century, and today the number of female iconographers working across all Christian denominations outnumber male. Yet it is not a recognised movement of practice, and no documentary study or network of female iconographers currently exists. Women's iconography in the 21st century will change all of that by developing the first qualitative study of women's iconography as a global Christian movement, establishing the first international network of women iconographers with the Orthodox Academy of Crete, a research centre accredited by the Greek government's Ministry of Education and International Affairs, which exists to promote interreligious dialogue between scientists, theologians, technologists and politicians. The Academy will hold the first international conference of women's iconography and oversee a special edition of its journal after Constantine on women iconographers. And the final outcome of the AHRC Catalyst Award will be to expand the first international archive of women's iconography that I have co-curated with Lancaster University's digital collections team to include digital walkthroughs, 3D imaging, and the work of iconographers who cannot speak English. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background and the journey to this project. While developing my doctoral thesis into a monograph in 2022, I wanted to establish a model of literary criticism that would interpret the work of devotional women writers through the parameters of their own belief systems. In the field of literary studies, the worldview of the author is conventionally regarded as distinct from the text, which belongs to the community of readers who generate its meanings. This approach often leads scholars to overlook the ways in which the lived experience of religious faith shapes the work of women writers. As a woman of faith, I saw myself as part of the female faith communities that influenced the work of the authors I was studying, Louisa May Alcott and Christina Rossetti, and I wanted my literary interpretations to reflect a sense of communion with these women. In searching for a devotional framework on which to base my method, I discovered Orthodox iconography. Iconography is the most ancient sacred art practice of the Christian tradition and was established in the Coptic region in the 2nd century. It is based on an encounter between the artist and their subject, which I strove to emulate in my interpretation of Alcott's and Rossetti's work. Through engaging in prescribed prayers, rituals and techniques that were established by the early Christian church, the iconographer strives to create an image where the subject appears to them as an enduring presence. Icons are distinct from other forms of sacred art in that they are seen to be windows to eternity that allow the holy subject to look out on the viewer from the invisible world. The subject of the icon faces the viewer and engages them in a direct gaze. Their features contain elements of abstraction and realism to signify their spiritually transfigured status. When researching iconography for my devotional reading method, I discovered 3 key facts about the ways in which women have traditionally engaged with the icon. 1. In the Orthodox Church, iconography was traditionally a male vocation. Women were never officially barred from the practice, but no female iconographers were officially recognised by the Eastern Orthodox Church until the 20th century. 2. There is no historical record or study of women iconographers because icons were signed with the name of the holy figure whom the iconographer encounters. 3. There are only 14 representations of women in a canon of approximately 500 images committed to the Orthodox dogma. Despite these barriers to participation and representation, hundreds of women are embracing the art of iconography across the world, and a lucrative market of iconography workshops has developed in the West. The practice attracts women across all denominations because it is the only Christian sacred art form that is permitted in the Eastern Orthodox Church, and it is also widely practiced across the Western Christian denominations. On discovering the prevalence of women iconographers today, I wanted to know why so many women are drawn to a medium that has historically excluded them, and how they encounter a male-dominated canon of holy figures. To the answer to these questions and the study of women's iconography more broadly sheds light on how women make a space for themselves in the Christian church today, and the ways in which women achieve agency, spiritual leadership and empowerment in religious practices from which they have been historically excluded. So to move on to my vision. My vision is to establish women's iconography as a category of study in the fields of both religious studies and visual art. To test the viability of this research and the scope of the field, I successfully applied for an AHRC Impact Acceleration grant while working as a fixed-term lecturer in English at Lancaster University. This small grant is designed to springboard to a larger bid and allow me to start surveying female iconographers across the world through building the first digital archive of women's iconography with Lancaster University's Digital Collections team. The platform launched in March of this year and features 33 digital collections featuring women from Armenia, Brazil, Canada, Greece, Finland, Latvia, Lebanon, Mexico, the Ukraine, Russia, the United States, as well as the United Kingdom. It has played a crucial role in digitally preserving icons that are at risk of being vandalised and destroyed in war-torn countries like Armenia, Lebanon and the Ukraine. So one of our female iconographers is Armenian. Some of the images of her icons have in fact been stolen, lost, vandalised. Similarly, some of the images of the icons in the Ukraine have now been destroyed in the Russian invasion. To date, I have been in touch with over 80 female iconographers globally and have established a strong network of research subjects who are willing to participate in my study. My project has also offered practical support to female iconographers through facilitating exhibitions and symposia. While working as a fixed-term assistant lecturer in English at Maynooth University, Ireland, I convened the first international roundtable of women's iconography featuring Orthodox, Episcopalian and Baptist female iconographers from Britain, Mexico and the United States. The project is particularly invested in the icon as a vehicle for interfaith dialogue. It positions the sacred image as a creative space where women can discuss their varied and even oppositional views about their roles and representations in Christianity. The event attracted women from across Northern Ireland and the Republic, and in feedback forms, delegates commended the way that the event allowed them to discuss contentious religious differences that they would not normally broach in public in a safe space. The event supported one of the project's key aims, which is to explore how women's varied faith backgrounds influence the scale and nature of their interventions in the iconographic tradition. Women's iconography in the 21st century examines a range of responses to the Orthodox icon, from the traditional to the radical. One of our presenters, the LGBTQ+ theologian Reverend Dr. Angela Yarber, queers and decolonizes traditional iconography by representing forgotten women from marginalized communities using a folk feminist style of painting. Reverend Dr. Yarber's work was featured in an exhibition of feminist iconography, Queering the Dream, that I curated at the Lancaster Priory, and attracts a broader audience beyond those who might traditionally engage with the icon, to include people who have been excluded from Christian worship spaces in the past. Indeed, the project endeavours to popularise and disseminate knowledge of the icon and its practices. One of the ways I have engaged the general public is through delivering a series of workshops in arts venues, museums, churches and universities across Britain and Ireland, including most recently Hatfield College, where I currently work as an administrator. And these workshops enable participants to iconise women from their own families using the techniques and methods of traditional iconographers. These community events generate discussion about women's representation and cultural importance in Christianity among the public, providing opportunities for participant observation that have enabled me to document how icon making influences the ways in which underrepresented groups engage with sacred art and worship spaces of the Christian tradition. A catalyst bid will enable me to build on these significant achievements in 4 ways. 1. A full-length monograph on women's iconography and special edition of After Constantine will establish this research as a field of academic scholarship. So far I've kind of established it as a field of public research because my previous grant was for impact. And as a field of academic scholarship, it will explore how overlooked traditions of female devotional practice can transform our understanding of how women can bring traditional and even patriarchal religious traditions into the 21st century. 2. Expanding the archive to include digital walkthroughs and 3D imaging will widen public access to the work of prominent female iconographers, especially for those who cannot travel. For example, the archive includes a digital collection for Shirley Stella-Contos, who's the lady you can see on the slide, America's first female iconographer who iconographed churches across the United States. It is impossible to appreciate the scope of Contos's achievements without walking through one of the churches she adorned. 3. Developing an international network of iconographers with the Orthodox Academy of Crete will allow me to establish professional opportunities for female iconographers that will outlive the project. A private investor has already offered to donate $20,000 to the first International Conference of Women's Iconography, which we will use as a scholarship fund to allow women to attend the conference from countries where the practice is under threat, such as the Ukraine and Lebanon. The Academy houses 2 conference rooms with a capacity of 700 people, along with a retreat centre and exhibition space. And I should say my private investor is one of the female iconographers who I've worked with. She's really invested in the project. She is retiring and selling her house. She wants to donate part of the funds from that towards a conference of women's iconography because she says she's been waiting her whole life for someone to come along and document what female iconographers are doing today. And she was part of the roundtable I organised, and she attended the launch event for the archive virtually. She really believes in me and in the project. She also runs her own publishing company and studio, and so it would be possible to list her as a partner on the bid with that donation. 4. Working with public organisations that promote interreligious dialogue will bring local faith leaders and religious communities together to discuss the role of sacred art in empowering women and combating sectarianism. My recent proposal to partner with the St Mungo's Museum of Religious Life and Art in Glasgow to host a roundtable discussion and series of masterclasses with 3 Ukrainian female iconographers is currently under review. So, project team and approach. I am the right person to lead this project because I have established women's iconography as a category of practice by attracting an international audience and group of stakeholders. In addition to the 80 female iconographers with whom I have had contact, 250 members of the public have participated in my programmes and symposia, while my events have received national press coverage from the Lancaster Guardian, the Lancashire Telegraph and the Church Times. And I should say the 250 participants from workshops and roundtables and symposia, I have a mailing list for all of them. They subscribe to my website. I keep in touch with them. As a specialist in women's writing, literature and religion in the arts, I am well qualified to conduct a study of women's iconography. To date, I have completed 4 fixed-term lectureships in Britain and Ireland and published 1 monograph, a co-edited collection of essays, and a portfolio of 8 peer-reviewed articles. Securing a Catalyst Award will allow me to lead a significant research project for the first time, thereby accelerating my career as an ECR whose professional development has been restricted by precarious fixed-term contracts. Lancaster University Library have agreed to be a co-I for the bid, and I will be able to continue working with the digital collections team to enhance the archive. Leading the project with Durham's Department of Theology and Religion will support me in developing the requisite expertise to carry out my methodology. My approach will combine qualitative interviews with participant observation. My listed mentors, Professor Matthew Guest and Dr. Sitna Kiraz, regularly use these methods and are specialists in the sociology of religion, which is the study of how religion is shaped by the everyday experiences and devotional practices of people of faith. Since the project will document how women extend and develop sacred art practices from which they have been historically excluded, I will seek to identify patterns of experience in the callings of women to become iconographers, as well as their spiritual journeys to the practice and the ways in which it has influenced their relationship with the wider devotional community. There are 5 key research questions that underpin my study of contemporary women's iconography. 1. What motivates women to become iconographers? 2. How far do female iconographers identify with traditional Christian gender roles? 3. Do female iconographers deliberately bend or disrupt the tradition to make a space for themselves within it? 4. How far is the icon shaped by women's personal experiences in prayer and contemplation? And 5. Do Orthodox women approach iconography differently to women from other denominations and or cultural backgrounds? To begin to answer these questions, I will conduct a series of interviews with a sample of female iconographers. My approach will combine semi-structured online interviews with in-person group interviews at the First International Conference of Women's Iconography. Semi-structured interviews uncover the subject's perspective by obtaining descriptions of how they experience religious practice. They centre on a series of research questions, such as the ones I have shared with you, but allow subjects the freedom to elaborate on their stories while posing questions of their own. Group interviews allow the researcher to document a variety of perspectives on a single theme and will enable me to bring together female iconographers from a variety of faith backgrounds and cultures to discuss the defining features of women's iconography as a movement. There are a number of practical questions about how these interviews should be conducted that I will discuss with my mentors. These include 1. How many participants should be included and how should I select my sample? It would be impossible to effectively analyse a very large sample, but it is also difficult to draw significant conclusions from a small one. What are the characteristics of the participants? How many women from each denomination should I select? Should I document them by age, ministry, their professional status? Is it necessary to include an interview with a woman from each country where iconography is practiced? That would be quite hard. 3. How will the interviews be recorded and transcribed? Should I use any graphic displays? How far should quotation be balanced with analysis? Is the inclusion of repetitions, digressions, and hums necessary? 4. Should all the interviews be conducted in English or should I recruit translators to assist me with this project? And how should I select any sample of non-English speakers? And 5, would it be advisable to conduct a case study of women from a particular school of iconography, such as the Prosopon School of Russian iconography, for example, which is the largest iconography school that practices in the UK? Alongside the qualitative interviews, I will also conduct participant observation in iconography workshops that will be led by a selection of my subjects. Participant observation will allow me to see the iconographers at work and observe firsthand how icon making influences the ways in which women experience and express their faith and embrace leadership roles within a wider faith community. It will allow me to observe the significance of my subjects' creative practice in public life, going beyond their experience of iconography as a private act of devotion. Again, there are a series of practical questions that accompany the use of this method, such as how many workshops should I observe, and whether I should focus on the style of the work produced, the conversations between participants, or the social role adopted by the iconographer. I've already done quite a bit of participant observation. I'll be participating in my 3rd iconography workshop on Lindisfarne this summer. As you can see from the image, that's an icon I made with an iconographer in Greece. I also took part in a class run by the Prosopon School of Russian Iconography, and then of course there's been all the public workshops that I facilitated as well. In writing up my findings, I will adopt an autoethnographic style of writing that will centralise my own experience conversing and making icons with my subjects. The autoethnographic approach presents the researchers' reflections on their personal experience as a crucial aspect of their analysis and compares their own engagement and reactions with religious or devotional practice with those of their subjects. This allows them to develop an insider's perspective on the effect of religious ritual on the individual, which is very difficult to meaningfully observe as an objective outsider. The autoethnographic method privileges the transcendent reality of the research subject. It starts from the premise that the individual's reality is shaped by their culture, background, and belief system. Therefore, sharing in the transcendent reality of female iconographers through engaging in the ritual processes of icon making will enable me to develop a fuller understanding of how icon making shapes and transforms their identities. I should add that my own perspective as a woman of faith and member of the Christian tradition will shape my experience of icon making and interpretation of the interviews. This perspective will be acknowledged self-reflexively in my research findings because it is important for my readers to understand how my own faith background informs both my interactions with my subjects and my interpretation of their lived experiences and art. The autoethnographic approach will also harness my prior skills in creative writing, in which I have worked as an instructor for 5 years. Indeed, I am currently working on a biography of a 19th century female artist that is it's under contract for publication, and this biography deploys autoethnographic research methods. As such, I will be able to bring my expertise and training in literary research to bear on this project. So, why do I think this project matters? It reveals how women of faith across the world dynamically transform devotional traditions from which they have been historically excluded and bring them into the 21st century. In doing so, it reconciles diverging aspects of women's identities that are often seen as conflicted, such as feminism and faith, thereby creating a holistic image of the female artist. And it brings women together across denominations with members of the public to productively discuss how female artists and spiritual leaders should be represented in the Christian faith today, providing a safe space for interreligious dialogue. Thank you for listening to my presentation today. I would particularly value any guidance you have to offer on Durham University's ethics process and my method of approach. Thank you.